finally got promoted to the Premier League. But what a lot of people don't know is when we arrived in the Premier League is we had spent the last 3 years making all the mistakes that we needed to make. My first thought was, oh, to be honest.
This is real now. Hey guys, welcome to FBT Football Business Television. I'm Sebastian Bassong, your host of the day. Apparently, I'm a host, ex-football player, freshly retired 5 years. I don't know if it's that fresh, but now I'm hosting event. I'm a coach and consultant in performance, in personal development and transition. That's what I do for whether it's athletes or corporate people or managers. I don't know. It depends who for, but that's what I'm working on. Yeah, I'm in love with behaviors, and that's what I do. I love to win. Hence to my background, and I've put myself into situation now to help people to discover who they are and what they do best in order for them to win. And today we're here with somebody that I would have. I've played against him. I haven't been the chance to be his player, but I've played against him. He's been on the other side managing teams that are gladly beaten when I was playing, but we'll talk about it later. We're here with Garry Monk. Garry, how are you doing?
How are you, Seb? You okay?
I'm very good. For those people
Pleasure
that
to be
don't
here.
know you, I don't know if some people don't know you. Would you do me the favor to introduce yourself? Who are you?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Garry Monk, and I was a professional footballer for 18 years career, and then I moved into the coaching and head coach side of it. We call it the dark side. Once you're a player, it's the sunshine side, and then when you go to the coaching, you're now the bad people. So yeah, I've been a professional coach now for the last 12 years. So yeah, across nearly 30 years of my life, I've been involved in the professional game, both as a player and as a coach.
And who's the man? Are you a father, a husband?
Yeah, I'm both. I'm the father of 3 kids. I've got twin boys, which you'll be pleased to know. One of them's a Tottenham fan, so that's always good as well. But and
There you
then I've
go.
got an older daughter. Yeah, and I've got an older daughter. So yeah, husband of 3 and a wife who've pretty much, especially my coaching career. So my daughter was very young when I was finishing the playing side of it. So really, the kids and my wife have lived. Well, the kids especially have lived through my more seen this side of it when I've been a coach, which has been a totally different experience from them. As I said, when you're a player and you have kids and they're coming to watch games, it's quite fun. I think when you come to the coaching side of it, and they've got a baying crowd for your blood, is not so is not so enjoyable for them. But it's been a good experience.
Yeah, two totally different experience, whether it's from as a father or as a player. But let's go back a little bit from your player to manager's day, because as you said, and I remember you being the especially Swansea's captain for quite a long time, and you're the one you led the team from League Two to Premier League. So you've been all the way. You spent so many years, you crafted, and then you went to the top and stayed to the top. So what? Okay, in those years when you were playing, was the young Garry already a manager in his head?
Um, I don't know if quite a manager, but I was always interested. I was always interested in the coaching side of things. I liked to pay attention to how coaches spoke. Whether that was on the training ground, on the training pitches, or that was in team meetings, or that was at half-time talks or full-time talks. I was always interested, and I think because I was a captain and sort of had those leadership skills, I guess that's why I paid more attention to what their managers were saying, which is a good thing. I'm sure managers appreciate that someone's listening because they're not always listening. But
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
yeah, I kind of always just I think it's people talk a lot about leadership, but I think it can be taught leadership for sure. But I think outward leadership, so vocal leadership, is either in you or it isn't. I think there's two types of leaders. There's ones that lead by being vocal, and there's other ones that lead by example. So I think I was more a vocal leader, an organizer. I enjoyed that side of it anyway. And then being a defender, as you know, is that you have to be an organizer. You have to have the right people around you and get them in the right places, so you don't have to defend as much. That was what I thought my job was. So yeah. So
That's
yeah,
no,
I
but
know you know that.
I know. Listen, that's what I keep saying to people. Being a defender, I want to make my job easier. So if I can direct people and place you in a certain way, I don't have to defend as much. So that's what you're talking about when you talk about leadership as you as a player during all those years. For me, leadership is influence. You can influence. There's some people they're so introverted, but they can influence somebody else by their way to be. So
Yeah,
leadership is not only being vocal, but as soon as you know how you can lead, I think you become a better player. But
yeah.
during okay, when you stepped in 2014 from the player side to the managerial side, like player coach, coach manager, players manager, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how they call it now. Take me back to this time. What happened? What went through your mind? Why did you say yes? Yeah, what happened?
Um, yeah, it was really out of the blue. I think we'd had a really successful season the previous season under Michael Laudrup, and we finished, I think it was ninth in the Premier League, and then we had won the League Cup. For a small club like Swansea, that's just an unbelievable achievement for the club that where Swansea had been and where we were at that point. And then obviously the season after that, when we got into Europe, and I guess the strains on the squad, because we were only a very small squad and very small club, getting into Europe the following season and having to deal with the Premier League um, probably took its toll a little bit on us. So we weren't in great form in the Premier League, and like as I know now as a manager, when you're not winning in that level of football, any level of football professionally, is you come under pressure as a manager. And unfortunately for Michael, is we weren't. The simple fact is we weren't winning enough games. The club made a decision at that time. From a playing perspective, I was injured, so I'd been injured for about think it was about 5 weeks at that point. So I wasn't really involved in the playing side of it. I was doing my rehab at the training ground. I was coming towards the end of my career anyway. So I think my mind at that stage was thinking about, I've probably got about 2 years left in my body to go and play football. So I was probably thinking about my next step, which is, okay, I'm not quite a regular in this team anymore at that stage. And probably think in my mind, I was just thinking, okay, finish this season and then try and find somewhere where I can go and enjoy maybe the last 2 years of the season, maybe at a lower level, to just go and try and get the most I could out of my body. So then, unfortunately, when Michael was removed as manager, the owner, the chairman, Hugh Jenkins at the time, just came to me because I'd been club captain for such a long time, and felt that I built up a lot of respect within the changing room and around the club and around the city. And he just said to me, "Look, we haven't got a replacement right now. We're looking for one. Can you just take the team for training?" So at that point, because I've been there for like 10 years, at that point, I was like, "Look, whatever you need me to do, I would always do." So funny enough, we had when that conversation came, in 3 days' time, we were playing against Cardiff. So that Swansea Cardiff, for people that don't know, Swansea Cardiff is in that area of the world is a massive derby. It's one of the most heated derbies. All derbies are heated, but
Yeah.
like in that part of the world, that means one of the biggest things you can have. So, and obviously being there for 10 years, I knew how much that meant. So, not an easy first task to walk straight into. My first thought was, oh my God, I've spent 10 years here building a good relationship with everyone. I've got a good relationship with the fans. In 3 days' time, if I lose this game, that relationship might be finished. So that's what I was thinking. But yeah, look, it's initially like it was just take the training until we find a new manager. So of course, I just took the training, and it wasn't so much like me acting like a coach or manager. I went straight into the change room and said, "Look, lads, I've been asked to do the training with Chris O'Leary, who was a 21s coach then, I had some support from coaches around me who were actual coaches." The way I handled it was just being a captain. I just acted like a captain. There was no difference in me. It was just more, listen, I've been asked to take the training. I've got to select a team on the weekend or a squad. hope you can appreciate that that's not easy. And that's all I really tried to do. So that initial step was like very much not me thinking like a manager or coach. It was just, okay, what do these lads need? What do we all need? We want to try and get away from the relegation fight and get ourselves safe. We have to do it all together. So I acted more like a captain, really, trying to just bring us together and try and get through each day that, but always in the back of my mind, they're going to bring someone in soon. And every time we played a game, there was 13 games left of the season. Every time we played a game, I would ring the owner and say, when's the guy coming in? Who have you got? Who have you got? I wasn't thinking about, taking all 13 games, which it ended up being.
But so when did you start thinking about, you know what, it might be my next job. It might be what I want to do. When did that happen? So basically, when did you start thinking like a manager?
Well, it wasn't until the end of that season. So those 13 games, I ended up week by week, kept it, like I said before, kept asking, when's the next guy coming in? Because we kept getting some good results, I'm getting away and finished quite comfortably. I guess they were thinking, okay, maybe we'll leave it to the end of the season to have a look and see if we can bring someone in. So I was only at the end of that season and it had gone really well. In my mind at that point, I was thinking, I've got 1 year left on my playing contract. I knew the academy manager's role had come up. I was kind of thinking, right, maybe I do that. Or like I said before, go and play somewhere for 2 years. What I thought I had left, try and get a contract elsewhere. But the owner come to me at the end of the season and just said, look, Garry, he said, you've done incredibly well in these 13 games. If you want the job, we won't look for anyone else. So my first thought was, oh shit, to be honest. And
This is real now.
yeah, I thought, oh shit, because I wasn't thinking like that at all. I was interested, and I was thinking of coaching, but I always thought my route would be, go into the academy, like earn your stripes in your academy, and then maybe move up to the first team. And again, not maybe manager, but maybe assistant coach or something like that. I always thought that might be my path at that club. But then I kind of thought, this 13 games has been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it. It's been stressful, but I enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, I'm coming towards the end of my playing career. I'm interested in coaching. I could go the academy route, but then part of me has always been one where I think you can see from our journey at Swansea, the challenge. Like in life, I've always been one like, okay, like a lot of people will not think you're going to be able to do it. Like when I was playing, like we started off in League Two. I started my whole career in League Two when I was very young, and then it was always when we went to the next level. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to go to the next one. Maybe this is your level, and then we achieved again. Then it was like, okay, but this is definitely not you, and it kept achieving, and then we got to the Premier League. So that challenge in itself, I think, was ingrained in a lot of us. That type of personality. So I just thought it's a Premier League job. It's into the fire. It's probably the most fire pit you can go into, but you're never going to know unless you do it. So I had no experience, of course. Like everything was against me, like in terms of the odds. But what I did know I had was I had a club that knows me. I also had a club that I knew them. I also knew most of the squad. Obviously, new players were going to come, but I knew the majority of the squad. We'd had a successful sort of trial period in that 13 games, even though I wasn't thinking of it as a trial, but it ended up being a trial. Um, why not? Let's go for it. And because I cared about the club, like I said, I really cared about the club. So I think I knew and the club knew that no matter what happened, even if it was a disastrous spell, like you've got someone that's going to give absolutely everything and actually cares for the club. So yeah, I decided, yeah, why not? The thing that people don't know much about is that um, we spoke about it before we come on air. Like I have twin boys. My wife was pregnant with twin boys at the time. So after accepting the job and then starting a Premier League job with no experience, I then had twin boys 2 weeks later. So home life was crazy. My professional life was crazy. So like trying to balance all of that sort of stuff was just like, yeah, wow, absolutely insane.
As you said, it wasn't, people would have maybe expected it to be a disaster. It could have been, but lucky for you and credit to you, it wasn't. You knew the club. I remember playing against you guys, the Swansea team in the Prem. I mean, you guys had such a way. You created such a way to, for the other, even the other team to fear you, because you had some success and you walked your way through from League Two to Premier League. Now I want to know the, because I really do want to know, not only for the show, where did you get your inspiration from? Because it was a tactically, because you created some, you revolutionized, I think, the way Swansea was playing. You were such an enjoyable team to watch, and you were doing stuff. Where did you get that from? Was it Garry the player, or Garry that had new idea as a manager? I want to know tactically where the inspiration come from.
It started in 2008 with Roberto Martinez, that style of play. He came in when we were in League One, and we did our first pre-season in Spain, and we played all the Spanish teams that play this way. And it was a big eye opener for us. We were like getting beaten all the way through pre-season. We were getting proper beaten. But what we didn't know at the time, where we were losing games and getting absolutely thrashed by these teams that could keep the ball for fun, was Roberto knew that we had players in the squad capable of doing it. So he implemented that first belief in doing it, and going through that experience, and then coming through League One and then the Championship, was where we were building that style over a number of years, probably 3 years of that style and that sort of way of playing, and then into Brendan Rodgers when we finally got promoted to the Premier League. But what a lot of people don't know is when we arrived in the Premier League, is we had spent the last 3 years making all the mistakes that we needed to make, so that when we arrived in the Premier League with that style of play, is we were ready. And that was our edge, because we were against much more powerful teams than us in terms of squads. But if you remember, around that time, 2011, 2012, it wasn't like now. There wasn't lots of teams in the Premier League playing
That's what I'm
possession
saying.
football.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. For
So
me,
so that was yeah. So
it
that
was
was our
amazing.
edge. Our edge is we know we're good at that, and we knew that like we'll surprise quite a few. So because there wasn't a lot of teams that were coping with that. Like we had a few in that build up from the League One to the Championship. We had quite a few FA Cup games against Premier League sides. I remember we played like Fulham, for example, and we absolutely murdered them. I don't think they could get the ball off us, and even them walking off the pitch were like, wow, like unbelievable. So we knew we had that. That was our edge. So when we got promoted to the Premier League, that was our edge. But then, of course, Pep changed all of that. I think maybe we spent 7 years in the Premier League, but maybe those last 2 to 3 years was when other teams with much more power than us, especially financially, everyone was starting to move that way. And now you see the Premier League as the Premier League now, but that was starting probably around 2016, 17,
16,
18.
17. Yeah.
Yeah, lots more teams in the Premier League were becoming possession based, obviously recruiting talented players that could play that way. So it was becoming harder for us. So I think my year, that first full season for me as Swansea manager, I think that was probably the last year of where our style could really cope and still compete to the level of those teams. But you could see that it was coming, where now everyone's doing it, or the majority of the teams are doing it.
That, that,
So what? How do we adapt? How do we stay where we are? Even though that's going to be incredibly difficult.
but you see, that's what I like to hear, because tactically, honestly, being on the pitch and watching you, even when we were going to play against you, me, I'm from France. So I've been groomed in the kind of technical possession, style of play. So I was quite familiar to it. But being in the UK and England for quite a time, I was like, this is this is new. I loved watching you, to be fair. Not playing against you, but watching you playing, I loved it. If you would have to describe in a couple of words your style of play, what would it be for the people watching? Because this show is called Tactic Boards. I want to,
Yeah.
I want to get into your head, into the thinking. You said it. Your influence was Roberto Martinez, Spanish football, which, trust me, we've been
Mm.
we've been popped around by a Spanish team so many times
Yeah.
in preseason,
Yeah.
even us with Spurs, and it was too much. So, how
Mm.
would you describe your way to do things in your own words?
Yeah. I think it's changed over time. I think like we're all romantic about football. Like we all got in our minds to put our, it all may be different. Like you may be different to me or whatever it is, but in our minds, we know like the perfect way we'd love to see one of our teams play football. And then we start with that passion and that romanticness. Like, and then apart from the very, very top managers that maybe can have their pick of the players that fit into those systems and play that way, I think for the majority of coaches, it's you quickly understand that romantic way is very difficult. Very, very difficult. And then the battle comes of, okay, do I stick to that romantic view of like, this is my way and I'm only going to do this way and I'm going to make it work? Or do I become adaptable? Do I have to change my way? And I think we're caught. It's very interesting. I had this conversation the other day where I think because of Pep, Pep's amazing. Like what he's done for football is absolutely amazing. But what we have to understand is Pep's doing that at the highest of levels,
Oh, thank you,
and he's
Gary.
doing it with the highest level of players. And even though that's still incredibly difficult, that's what he's doing. That's how it functions. So I think he's influenced a generation of coaches now that all want to do that, and which is fine, and we all want to do that. But I think what's been caught up quite a lot, and we're seeing it now, especially this season, and maybe the end of last season. And I think we see it is
Mhm.
people are now like coming round to the fact of, our team can't actually do that. So why is this manager sticking with this? Why is that manager like staying stubborn to this? We're seeing it now with Man United, with Amaron. I've seen Russell Martin at Rangers, going through this, Ange Postecoglou last season at Tottenham. People are now coming round to the fact of like, why are we doing this with this set of players? So I think I was lucky where I knew my style, and I've enjoyed it from a learning perspective as well, because I had no experience when I started of coaching. Was I've kind of been adaptable all the way through. Every team I've had, I've kind of gone with the mindset of I'd love to do this, but this squad of players, after I analyse them, can't do that, or to the level that's going to be needed to get the result. So I have to adapt myself to them. What's the strength of the squad? I've played different every club. I've probably played all the ways. Swansea, a lot of possession. Um, Birmingham was counter attack, defensive. Middlesbrough was a hybrid of both. Some possession, some counter attacking. So I've really enjoyed that. I think my idea of good management is looking at a squad of players, seeing what their strengths are, and then trying to put them into a system or a philosophy that suits them. And then if over time you can stay there and you can build to what you really want, great. But in the meantime, like you have to adapt yourself. I think that's good management.
I,
Whereas I
I,
see a lot
I
of yeah,
agree. I totally agree with you. For me, that's the downfall that I keep seeing in especially in the Prem. I give you a story. I have my godson that lives with me over here in London, and he plays non-league football. And at some point, his manager had inverted fullback. I mean, they and I went to see him at the end. They were coming in, and I asked him the question, "Why are you doing that for?" I mean, with all due respect, you ain't got the players to do that. And he said, "No, you know what?" And he mentioned Pep. So that shows people how influential Pep has been into the the world football, even in a non-league play
yeah,
football. So that goes back to what you're saying. You're an adaptable manager, but what would be your ideal if you have everything, the means, tactically? Describe me your formation, favorite formation, and your instruction. What would you say? What would you want to be?
yeah. And no, yeah, it's funny because it's like put in an ideal world,
Yeah.
I, I I like watching teams that are fast and aggressive, and like I don't feel like I've played both. Like I said, I've had teams that can put 15, 20 passes together to score a goal. I've had teams that can put two passes together and score a goal or create an opportunity. I like both. I like the both of it. It's exciting, but I like a really aggressive team. But I like an adaptable team. Okay, some games we can go and totally dominate. We can go and high press, aggressive. We can keep the ball for fun. And in other games, okay, listen, we're gonna have a little bit of respect here. They've got some good players. We're gonna wait. We're gonna condense, and then we're gonna go really aggressive, counter attacking. So I think in an ideal world, that's what I'm saying. I've changed like over time. I think where I went with the romantic view is like I really enjoy coaching adaptability because no, unless you've got the best squad and you're at the very highest level of your league in terms of players and quality, I think it's very hard to win games regardless. So I like a team that can adapt. I like a team that can go and dominate possession, go really aggressive, high press, all these things, all these buzzwords. But I also like a team that can be patient, sit there. Okay, maybe we don't have the ball for the next 10 minutes, but to tell you what, As soon as we win that ball back, we're going to go fast, direct. We're going to try and get to an attack quick. So I don't really have a one set ideal philosophy. And like, I like one thing I do like, and I think it's a good detail. I like the idea of two strikers, and I've played every club I've been at. I've used two strikers. Shall I tell you the reason why? And you'll notice, Seb, yourself. A lot of defenders that I see nowadays, a lot of back threes or back fours, I was so used to playing against one striker. Like, and so when if I'm a centre back, we're both centre backs, okay?
Yeah.
I remember playing whenever we used to. A lot of times we used to have to play against two strikers, sometimes even three, and it was like hell. You're like, oh my god, my concentration levels and everything.
Always
When it was
occupied.
what, yeah, when it was one, don't get me wrong, that can be a very good one, and like we have to watch players in pockets. I get all that, but when it was just one, I always felt more comfortable with my partner, my centre back partner, in terms of communication. It's a little bit. I'm going to get a breather in the game.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to have a time in the game where he's on my centre back partner, and I'm going to cover you, but I've got a little bit of thinking time. So I think like when you face two strikers and proper strikers, when there's two together, like I think especially nowadays, defenders. I like to see it more. I'd like to see it more in the Premier League. I like to see two strikers up against Man City's back four, Liverpool's back four, Chelsea's back four, whoever we want to say, because I think like a lot of defenders now, like, and this is no disrespect because they're still top players, of course, but I don't think they can defend as well. I think a lot of emphasis on defenders is to play with the ball, and that's important. Of course, it is. It's huge. But I'm watching it from grassroots when my sons play. I'm watching it at the lower levels. I've had loads of players who I've had good conversations with, defenders specifically, and I'll speak to them and talk to them about defending, and they look at me like I'm an alien. I'll say to them, okay, today, especially lower levels like Championship, League One, whatever it may be, is I'll say, okay, today is a physical game for you. Okay, like you're going to play against this striker. He's very physical. How are you going to do this? How are you going to win your battles? And they'll just say, oh, I just win my battle. I compete. I say, yeah, but how? And they look at you like, what do you mean how? Like, I'm going to try and win my headers. And I'm like, you have to have, there's a way of defending. There's an art to it, against different types of strikers. What's your unique thing? So if I'm facing Peter's Crouch, who's, of course, clearly much taller than me, is much better or Andy Carroll, who's much better in the air.
Yeah.
If I'm just me and him, if we're going just for every header, honestly, who's going to win?
Him.
So I have to have a way of like, how do I put him off, or how do I stop him winning his percentages of headers? So I see that a lot in defenders now. They don't know. So
yeah,
I'm kind of forgetting my point. Do you understand
no,
what I mean?
no. But listen. That speaks music to my head because for me, football goes about trend. Oh, you don't play with two strikers no more. But as a defender, as you said, I can get a breather, regardless how good the striker is. That gives me time. If I'm occupied with two strikers, then people always ask me, Seb, who was the toughest opponent? I said, I can't give you one because there's plenty. But as a two, Rooney, Van Persie, as a pair, listen, the game was hell. There were top strikers, but there were two of them. So by the time I look left, Rooney is chasing me. Robin Van Persie. I mean, I looked at my defenders, at my partner. You have to go to be on your A game, and that's when you know who can defend under pressure because it's constant pressure. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, because you're right as well.
Yeah.
Because I get asked that question, and you'll get it asked as well. Who was the hardest opponents you played against? And mine's same question, same answer as yours. Mine's always it's never one. It was always twos. So my twos were I played against Henri and Bergkamp, and I was like, there's a two. Duncan Ferguson, Alan Shearer. So those two as a two was like hell, but a totally different thing. And then Robbie Fowler and Michael Owen. And I was like, as a 19-year-old, like 20-year-old. And I played against those pairings. They were pairings.
Yeah.
So difficult, like extremely difficult. So it's like, I've tried to in my teams as much as I possibly can is get two strikers on the pitch. And whether that's a 4-4-2 or 4-2, you can say whichever system you want, or a 5-3-2. I've always tried to get as much as I can, two strikers, two forward players on the pitch as much as possible. I truly believe in that.
Yeah, because you do remember your playing days and you're thinking, "Oh, I wouldn't have loved that. I would have liked
Yeah.
that." Because you've done, from League Two to the Prem. when you don't have, you mentioned it, you touched on it earlier, when you don't have the financial backing, for example, because you got to adapt, you change clubs, different clubs with different finances, obviously. But when you come from the championship, whether it's from League Two to League One or to the highest level, how do you really adapt when you don't have the financial backing? Because the difference for me is huge. I've played in the championship, and when you come to the prem, people and the managers, they have their ideas tactically, they have their philosophy, but as you said, they might not have the players that the level that there is required. How do you really adapt internally when you don't have the financial backing?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really good question, Seb, because I think you're seeing it now this season in the Premier League. Look at when Burnley and Leeds last went to the Premier League and then got relegated straight away. And they went up with the belief of, what they did in the Championship is going to work in the Premier League. So, like, you're looking at Leeds now, what they did in the Championship under Bielsa, and then got up there and fantastic, unbelievable football, like in the Championship, and then got to the Premier League and still fantastic football, but you lost every week. So it's like now they're getting results. Whether they can sustain that, I don't know. But I think managers are getting clever when they're coming up the levels now of understanding. Okay, listen, I don't maybe depending on what I'm going to recruit this summer. Like if we can't get exactly what we want, like what are we going to do? So what you're seeing now is again coming back full circle to where people have gone from full blind, this is my way of playing, no matter what, I'm going to stick to it, is now we're starting to see a change of, no, we have to, when we go up that level, is we're going to have to adapt. I'm going to have to adapt to my squad. And I think owners are wanting them more now. Whereas I think the owners were blindly led down the line of, we need a philosophy and we need someone that can just coach this. And this is how we want our team and our club to be represented. Whereas I think now they're understanding, no, we need to be respect the fact of we are coming from here. We want to get to there, but it's going to take more time. So we can't go, we're playing this way, and then we need to do the same, but at a higher level here. No, we have to adapt to be able to get to it. So me, myself, I've just always adapted. I've had different constraints. I've had points deductions. I've had transfer embargoes at clubs that I've been at. So my mindset's always been every single manager will fight to always get better players. Every manager wants to bring better players. Like we'll never stop fighting for that. And part of our job is to push owners and have those conversations and put our side across to push for better players. But I've always had in the back of my mind, always, is no matter what hand I'm dealt, is my job is to play to the strength of the squad. And if I can get it a little bit closer to how I want to watch football played, great. I'm going to push for that. But like the short term view is to adapt to the squad, play what I think is their biggest strengths, and then over time, if I get time, which is a big buzzword for a manager, time, but which you don't get, but if you can get the short term right, I think then you'll get longer to maybe adapt it to more what you want to see.
Now, take us to, let's say, a typical week preparation tactically. How do you set your week in order to get to what you want to get in terms of the next game?
Yeah,
What is required from your brain and
yeah,
then onto the pitch? Take us through
yeah,
that, please.
yeah. So I've done many different types of morphologies. So physically, like how we train in a week and try and get the players to peak for a game on a weekend. So I've mostly used because I've found physically it's the best way to peak players, but I've used others as well. But the one I really like is the 4-day build up. So let's imagine, let's start with a game on a Saturday. We just played a game on a Saturday. Sunday is often a recovery. The Monday, I call it a bridging day, which would be there's a mixture of the group. Some that have played the game that still need some extra recovery. Some need that haven't been playing or only played certain amount of minutes that need certain trainings, a bit more physical. So I call it a bridging day where the whole squad's maybe on a different program. Because then what I like is those 2 days. So the Sunday and the Monday, I like it where everyone's doing their own thing, but all together. But some are on different programs. But by the time you come to the Tuesday, everyone's together, and then we're able to train properly. So I like to do a 4-day build up into the game on the Saturday. So on the Tuesday, it will be a defensive focus. So just to go back a step, I'm a coach that I'm probably 80-20 in terms of percentage on focus. So 80% focused on ourselves, maybe maximum 20% focused on the opposition. So I need to know everything about the opposition. Players don't need to know everything about the opposition. So they don't need to sit in meetings like for hours on end focusing on an opposition. We need to. I've got the view of we have to be at our best to have a chance in a game anyway. If we're not at our best, it doesn't matter what an opposition does. Like we're not going to win a game. So I'm very much I'd say 80-20%. So the Tuesday is very much around defensively what our principles are and how we need to get them right for this game that the opponent that we're going to play. The Wednesday would be an offensive, so everything attacking wise, focus, principles. Um, and those 2 days, the Tuesday and the Wednesday, defensive and then offensive, are the most physical days in terms of the intensities and the duration and how we do it. And then for the next 2 days, which is the Thursday and the Friday before the Saturday game, are much more tapered days. So I start to taper down the time and the physicality of those. And that's where we drill into certain details. It might be around set plays. It might be around just individual unit works and stuff like that on the Thursday and the Friday. So we're hitting Tuesday and Wednesday as the real physical high output days, focused on our defensive and offensive principles. And then for the Thursday and the Friday, much lower intensities or durations, focused on the little details that we need to know individually. And then that, I feel, from a physical point of view, is helping to peak and trough to then peak them for the game physically. And then enough time as well to get all the detail that we need to get into them to try and give us the best chance of winning that game on the Saturday.
Yeah, now we're getting into your head, and yeah, I can relate. I can relate in terms of inspiration because you mentioned Roberto Martinez. How do you being a proper, I would say, English product, getting inspiration from a Spanish manager? How did that work out? Because from your playing days, the type of football was what we kick and rush. We used to be very direct. How stubborn or even a visionary could you had to do to be in order to implement that in a landscape of very direct football? Because for me, I remember when I came to Newcastle and I was laughing. I was like, oh, okay, they, I can deal with it. I can manage. I'm physically, I'm strong. I'm fast. But if you can bring a little bit more of a possession football technique in terms of technique, and when I saw you and now I have you, I had the chance to talk to you. Was it tough for you in a English landscape to integrate that?
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that as well. And I think I was lucky. I was lucky where, and it goes back before Swansea. It goes back to when I was a young player, when I was 17, 18, 19, 20. And I started in League Two with a team called Torquay United, which were in League Two. And then in my first year of a youth contract. And then in the second year, I got brought by Southampton, who were in the Premier League. So my education really started when I went to Southampton. I was then training with players from around the world, from Europe, some top players playing Premier League football, and those culture differences of like those players. So we had all players, Scandinavian players, we had European players, we had Spanish players, we had all types of players there, and that was my first real exposure to these different cultures and different,
Yeah.
views on football. And then what we also had at the time, and I think he probably doesn't get enough credit for it, is Glenn Hoddle. Glenn Hoddle came to Southampton, and he was the first manager that I had experienced that was way ahead. The stuff that we see now, that we see the teams that play now. He was doing that back then. I remember with his Swindon team where he was player manager, and he was playing with a back three, and he was in the middle sweeping. I remember playing in a reserve game against Swindon, and he was playing, and he had his team set up with his back five, but he was playing sweeper of the three, and they were playing tiki-taka football, possession, high press, instant pressing, aggressive, but beautiful. And I remember thinking, wow, like that was my first ever experience of like playing against a team that played that way. And then, so having that experience there as a younger player is having been through the English way, which was back then, direct, aggressive, let's stick our elbows and let's head everything and all that stuff. I'm really pleased that I've seen both. I've seen that side of it when I was a younger player, and I've seen what we see now. the transformation of sports science and tactics and like the Pep Guardiola side of it. So I like the fact of I know what the dark arts are from an English side,
Yeah.
especially as a defender, and I know what the beautiful side is, where we have to bring the ball out from the back and we have to get the ball off the keeper. So I think those experiences and all those managers I've had, and then obviously moving into Swansea and then Roberto sort of changing the dynamic of Swansea, Brendan Rodgers taking that on to an even higher level when we got to the Premier League and taking us to the Premier League. And then some international coaches, Paulo Sousa that came, Michael Laudrup, these like foreign managers coming in. I just feel like I'm blessed with all the way through my career playing, and I've had such a melting pot of different personalities, different cultures, different styles of football, and also learning a lot of what not to do. So some managers that like have come in, tried to implement this, hasn't worked, their personalities aren't good or whatever, that hasn't dealt with the changing room. I just think all of that is, I think whether you're really like conscious of those things or not, subliminally they're going in your head. Oh yeah, I remember when that coach was like that. I remember a halftime team talk when he lost his mind, and that didn't go down well in the change room. I remember another time when he spoke really well in a meeting that was really like motivational, and it goes in your brain, and then you kind of use all of that as a melting pot to try and put your own personality. And so there's no one point in time. I just think I've been influenced by everyone, good and bad. And I think like hopefully I've understood what the bad things are and I've not really done them, tried to stay away from them. And then the good things I've experienced, I've tried to take those things, but then try and put my way across to the players in my way, But obviously, like all coaches, we learn from experience. We don't just, there are a few revolutionaries. I'm not clever enough, I'm not good enough to come up with completely my own stuff.
Yeah.
I'd love to do it because I do have ideas, but then are we brave enough as coaches? Because we got to remember it's a results business.
So
I think
true.
that's where if you can get to a club where you've got a lot of weight, you've been there, you've been successful, you've got a lot of weight, behind it. They're not just going to get rid of you. Maybe that's when you've got some freedom to really try things. But as coaches now, it's really hard to try things that you maybe would really love to do because it's such a result orientated business. And I always say you're working to every 5 game period. If you don't win within 5 games, look at Ange that's just gone into Forest. I think it's 6 games. And there's already talk in the media about him losing his job.
It's
And he's been there,
crazy.
what, 4 weeks? 4 weeks, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, so
Max.
I think as coach, that. I'd like freedom to, and maybe I should be braver sometimes, to really go out on a limb and say, I'm going to try this. But I think it's hard when you're trying to get the balance of keeping your job, also understanding what squad you got. So very difficult landscape for coaches. But I think it's just being honest to yourself and trying to be as adaptable as you can.
Last two questions for you, Gary, and then I'll let you go. For young coaches, what principles would you tell them to focus on in order to build their own tactical identity?
Yeah. I think the biggest advice I would give is we're very much caught up now. There's loads of important stuff, data, systems, and tactical, and everything like this. I think what you have to remember as a coach, the most important bit is the human side of it. Is you're dealing with humans, so like you want to. There's a skill to it. The man management is the most important bit. So you could be a terrible coach and have no tactics, right? Or very limited tactics. Okay. But if you have 11 players or 18 players, if you charge them a squad and they're ready to die for you, you're a tough opponent for anyone. And if you can add tactical and you can have good training and you can have a good, your ideas and get that across as well as being a good man manager, you have the perfect recipe. So I'd say to coaches now is like, do your homework. Of course, do all the stuff tactically, do everything you can technically, all of those things like try and learn and try and implement them and your beliefs on that. But I think don't neglect the most important bit, which is the human conversation, how you come across to your players and how you treat them and how outside of football as well, like them as people, how you treat them is what's going to bring you success. How you speak to them, how you interact with them is going to get you success. That's what I truly believe.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That's why I do what I do. But that's beside the point. When you think of last one, when you think about your next role, because you're gonna have a next role, something's gonna come. What kind of project really excites you now? Now for onwards. What kind of
Yeah.
project excites you?
I think, look, we're going to be honest. I
Yeah,
think in the football world, I think, and you know this as well as me, and this is no wrong or right about it. It's just the way it is. There's a lot of, I call them sharks. There's a lot of sharks in this industry, where people are trying to get to where they want to get to, and they'll climb over anything to get to it. And I've experienced that, and that's no problem. That's fine. That's the way of the world. We can, we're all big boys and we have to deal with it. I think what I learned going along is the most important bit to me now is working with good people. I want to work with good people that, of course, the demand is there to win and to results, and we have to win. But like, I want to work with people that I get are good people, and are on the same page. I think, like, as a coach, it's very difficult. The goalposts get moved a lot week to week. Emotions are high week to week, and different emotions. I love football. I've loved it. I love my journey. I feel like where I'm at as a coach is my experience now is I'm a better coach than when I started. That's the most important bit. And I feel like you only get better through more experience. So I just want to go and help. I want to, whether that's as a head coach, which I still got a lot of passion for, or that's maybe an assistant role to someone who's maybe starting out or at some point, or any type of coach, and give all of this experience I've got to help someone. So I'm open. I'm open to different types of experience, whether that's head coach or assistant coaching. I just love football. I love, it's been, and Seb, it's been our whole adult life or kid life. It's all I can remember. So it's in the blood. So we'll see what happens next. Hopefully it's something, there's no such thing as a project. You have to earn the project.
oh yeah.
You have to get results to be able to earn the project. So wherever you go, you have to deliver straight away. But that's good. That's part of the challenge. It's part of the passion, and you back yourself, don't you? We wouldn't have got to the professional levels if we didn't back ourselves in difficult situations. So just looking forward to it. But working with good people, honest people, is something that's really important to me.
All right. I think that that said it all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for letting us getting into your head and sharing so openly. Because I think people, especially the fans, people, they need to really understand. So sometimes people they have ideas, but they don't really know. And I think what I like is speaking openly with authenticity. Because for me,
Yeah,
authenticity plus self-awareness equals success. That's one of my tagline when I work, and people got to know. And yeah, working with the human being is very important. So, guys, for those of you who are watching on FBT Football Business TV, that was the tactic balls. Every manager sees the game differently. Today Gary gave us his views, his insight on his preparation, tactics, adaptability, because that's the word of the interview, adaptability. So the tactic boards where football tactics goes are broken down by those who lived it. Thank you very much, and I see you next time on FBT where the game gets down to business. Bye bye.